their biggest job, the biggest job that the Minor Court Rules Committee had to accomplish was helping the public feel welcome as though they belonged in traffic court. And you know, and this is where Jack Solis came in. Jack Solis was a friend of the people, and I don't know, I never met him. I never met him personally. I only read about him, but called the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, right?
They don't know.
They don't know. They don't know.
They
But
don't know.
They don't have that as a legitimate argument, though.
All they say is just take it up in court. I'm not going to argue it with you. Take it up in court.
But I'm talking, this is the role of the peace officer in traffic court.
Mm.
But the thing is, if the defendant, even one of the people, doesn't know that they have to know, and you don't expect them to tell you or tell the judge, they don't have to. They only have to when you have read that previously and you're ready to do your part of the argument against it. So you say, excuse me, sir, but you stopped me on the highway, right? That's a good way to start, because then you say, okay, can you tell the judge what highway means? Oh, and you know that it's all the places that are open, used, or intended for use by the general public for vehicles as a matter of right, as opposed to privilege.
What number is that in the statute?
Oh, it's 801.305. And they're all alphabetical, so you don't really need to know the number. It's an alphabetical listing of definitions. And there's another one.
So when you get pulled into court, traffic court, that officer that pulled you over better be there.
Better be there?
Yeah, he better be there.
I have been called as a witness in quite a number of traffic cases, and I have seen officers fail to appear, especially later, and as I did it several times, later they would not show up.
If they knew you were coming?
If they knew
you were coming.
Yeah.
The officer needs to be there so that they
if he doesn't appear, he loses. He doesn't really lose, he doesn't win. That's what you the defendant, you lose, and nobody has to explain why you lost your time. You didn't lose your money, but you lost your time. You had to come in. But and if you had me as a witness, well, you would have slammed the guy. But
So let's talk about, because you know your stuff. You know all of these statutes.
It's so easy to read. Let me assure you, this stuff, in the construction of statutes chapter, now listen to this, chapter 174.530, it says the statutes are written so plainly, they're plainly worded. It's right there, and they're written for a 6th grade level reader. So there's no excuse for ignorance.
Oh, and a lot of times when you're dealing, like if you're dealing with district attorneys or deputy district attorneys or whatever, oh man, when you're talking about statutes, a lot of times they'll say, oh, that's your interpretation of it. Or like a lot of times people will say, you need an attorney. Because basically what they're saying is, if you're not an attorney, you couldn't possibly understand or comprehend what it is that you're reading.
Well, I went to 8th grade, and then I actually went to high school too. I graduated. I actually went to college too, so
So statutes cannot be written in some kind of code or secrecy, but we do know
They are definitely in code.
they are. They're not supposed to be,
Right. But
but they are, which is, and perpetual ignorance is why we're in this bad situation.
and here's an example. There's a chapter on titling and registering vehicles, right? It's chapter 803. And when you get, well, you got to know so much. Um, in the Constitution of Oregon, in Article 4, which is about the Legislative Assembly, it tells the Legislative Assembly how they have to write laws, and for example, one of them, Section 18, Article 4, Section 18, says all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives.
And not in the Senate.
Oh my God, that's yeah, we're gonna get back to that one. I haven't talked about that one yet, but yes, and so in 803, which is titling and registration, 803.030. Which is about titling specifically, and exemptions to titling. There is concealed in that exemptions to titling the only vehicles which are required to be titled. And that is under Article 4, Section 20. Article 4, Section 20 says, laws shall embrace but one subject. Oh, one subject. And actually, they're talking about people, but people frequently operate motor vehicles. But they cannot talk about a mechanical object following, obeying, recognizing a law. So they're talking about the subject class called people or persons. And it says, except as otherwise provided in this paragraph, a vehicle operated over the highways of this state for compensation or profit must comply with the titling requirements. Wow, that is so explicit. And people will tell you, well, that's on that page, but what about all the rest? Oh, well, you know how easy it is to do a word search? Search that whole chapter on titling and registration for any other vehicle which must comply. There is none. That's how simple it is. And then there's the registration, and it's the identical words, the same words as for titling. The vehicle operated over the highways of the state for compensation or profit must comply with the registration requirements. Wow. So that it's just explicit. It's just there for a sixth grade reader. But if you know what the Constitution says, you won't get it.
And unless you know what they're up to.
Unless you've read the whole thing,
Why did they do this?
Why do they
What
do
did
what?
what did you discover about the Minor Rules Committee?
The Minor Court Rules
Or
Committee?
minor Court Rules Committee.
Ooh, the Minor Court Rules Committee.
Which started
started in 1950. Oh, and let me give you the number for that. That's before the revision of the code in the early 80s. So it was in the 400s. It was 484.420. Okay, and the Minor Court Rules Committee, or in those days it was called the Traffic Court Rules Committee, were supposed to write laws that set up schedules, fine schedules. Your fine is gonna be this much for this grade of violation and this for that grade, and
for who?
For persons.
For persons.
Yeah, persons, just persons. And
not the general public.
And they were supposed to develop paperwork and for traffic court, but their biggest job, the biggest job that the Minor Court Rules Committee had to accomplish was helping the public feel welcome, as though they belonged in traffic court, and and this is where Jack Solis came in. Jack Solis was a friend of the people, and I don't know, I never met him. I never met him personally. I only read about him, but
where can people go to read about him?
Well, you can look him up online.
Okay.
But I've read his laws, and you can look him up in the Oregon Blue Book under the Traffic Court Rules Committee, and later in 1967 they changed the title of that committee to the Minor Court Rules Committee, so it didn't attract so much attention.
Okay.